Any other headlines you can think of?
Well, at the moment, I think it's mostly about what we've already pointed out, of course, and the recent Lazarus events, which, of course, we have additional coverage of later on in the show. We also have some comments from our very own Cheesy Wheezy, who's already been mentioned in this show, who we asked if he'd be so kind as to submit his comments on recent events and recent progress in
this is in response to our Your Shout segment from yesterday, isn't it?
Yeah, it's partly a response to that. I also had a conversation with him over MSN. There were some points raised in there that I think would be quite interesting to share with the region as well. Nothing incriminating, don't worry.
He couldn't come with us on the show to discuss them, but we'll read out what he had to say and we'll discuss what we think. So, would you be so kind as to read Cheesy's response, please?
Certainly. What I asked for was basically an overview of his response to recent events, including various comments that had been made about him and about his views and about views in general. And this is what he had to say. As I'm sure you all know, I think Liberalian needs a lot of fixing. That said, I don't think it is anyone's fault, nor do I think that all these problems are new problems. My first thing is I think we need to treat our Prime Ministers better. Until we get this done, we can't get anything else done. Our Prime Minister is an important figurehead in our region and should represent everyone, whether you voted for him or not. Now, I'm not saying that you must agree with him, I'm saying that you should propose compromises to work with him and on the things you do agree with him on. The last two Prime Ministers have resigned before the end of their terms, and frankly that's a problem. I think an important way we can keep them is to keep the campaigning near the elections. We should not worry about making our own parties look good during a Prime Ministerial term, in which we should all be working together to make a better Liberalia. We should make it so that the questions asked of the Prime Minister during question times would be the only ones you need to ask, because you are genuinely concerned, not the ones that people ask to make their party look better. Next, we need to stop undoing each other's work. An important part of this is to stop doing work that is undoable, meaning that Prime Ministers should do something major if they have a large enough majority behind them, that the public opinion is unlikely to change for a long time. If they're unable to get people behind them, then they need to compromise, not just go ahead and do it with 49% of people are against them. Recently, Prime Ministers have been undoing the previous one's work when they get into office, which prevents progress from being made. Finally, we need to separate the legislative and executive branch. And he says here, I know this is going to piss off Trodenhiem and Kurt, but it needs to happen. We can't go holding Prime Ministers responsible if a bill doesn't pass in Parliament. The Prime Minister also should not be expected to make bills for Parliament. The Prime Minister's job is to do things like manage the immediate things and issues. Laws should not be up to the people who have seats in Parliament, which is everybody in New Liberalia. This, in my opinion, is the best way to get Liberalia on a path to function. What are your comments on that?
Well, I've got a couple of things I'd like to talk about from that response. First, there are a couple of inaccuracies that I'd just like to address. Cheesy said that, well, the last two Prime Ministers resigned before their term. Well, besides Walcott, the second last Prime Minister was me, and I resigned the day Walcott was elected as my term expired, so that wasn't correct. About undoing other Prime Ministers' work, he mentions that recent Prime Ministers have gone out of their way to, undo others' work, but in recent times that's true, but since October 2007, besides Walcott, the only Prime Minister we've had was me. So the only Prime Minister in the last 6 months who's been capable of undoing anything was Walcott. So I don't really... And Cheesy was behind Walcott's actions all the way, so I don't really understand where that point comes into play. Also, there was a comment about if 49% of the region disagree with something, the Prime Minister should be able to charge through and do what he likes. Well, for one, I don't agree with that whatsoever. I think if you have any majority, any at all, in an election process, that is a mandate to govern, and that's called democracy. It's not... Democracy doesn't have a set sort of threshold where, where we have